His hand clamped around her throat in the empty parking lot. 3 soldiers surrounded her. One pulled a knife. Staff Sergeant Marcus Drake weighed 220 pounds of pure muscle. Riley Morgan weighed 132 soaking wet. 11 seconds later, Drake was unconscious on the concrete. His knife lay 20 feet away. His 2 men were zip-tied with their own bootlaces. What Drake didn't know, what nobody on that base knew, was that the PT girl he'd cornered was the daughter of the most legendary SEAL instructor in naval special warfare history, and she'd been trained to kill since she was 12 years old. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. The candidates called her Demon in Yoga Pants. Riley Morgan heard them whisper it behind her back during Hell Week between gasps for air and prayers for death. She never acknowledged the nickname, never smiled at it, never let them see that somewhere deep inside it made her proud. 0530 hours, San Diego. 4th night of Bud S. Hell Week. 40 candidates had started. 23 remained. Riley stood at the edge of the Silver Strand, watching the black Pacific churn against the shore. Her voice cut through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. On your feet, movement in 60 seconds. Bodies stirred in the sand. Groans. Curses muttered too low for her to hear, or so they thought. She heard everything. Her father had taught her that. Awareness was survival. 50 seconds. A candidate collapsed, trying to stand. His swim buddy hesitated, looking at Riley, looking at his partner frozen in that terrible space between loyalty and self-preservation. Riley crossed the distance in 4 strides. She didn't help the fallen man up, didn't offer comfort. That wasn't her job. Your buddy quits you, quit, she said, her voice low enough that only the 2 of them could hear. That how SEAL teams work. That what you're going to tell the families of the men who die because you hesitated. The standing candidate's jaw tightened. Something shifted in his eyes. No, ma'am. Then get him up. You've got 30 seconds. She walked away without looking back. Behind her, she heard the struggle, one man pulling another to his feet, refusing to let go, refusing to quit. That was the job. Not making them comfortable, making them unbreakable. From the observation deck above the beach, a figure watched through night vision binoculars. Retired Master Chief Frank Delgado was 64 years old, with a face like weathered leather and eyes that had seen 3 wars. He'd trained Nathan Morgan 20 years ago, watched a skinny kid from Oklahoma transform into the deadliest operator SEAL Team 3 had ever produced. Now he watched Nathan's daughter do the same thing to a new generation. She's got his intensity, Delgado muttered to himself. Maybe too much of it. The candidates began their movement, a 4-mile run through soft sand, carrying telephone poles above their heads. Riley ran alongside them, matching their pace, never showing strain. One candidate fell, then another. Riley didn't slow down. Leave them, she called out. Medical will collect them. Keep moving. By the time the sun cracked the horizon, 3 more had rung the bell. 20 remained. Riley dismissed them to breakfast with a nod. No praise, no encouragement. They'd survived another evolution. That was enough. She was walking toward the instructor building when Delgado fell into step beside her. You pushed them harder than your father did, he said quietly. Dad's methods, his intensity. I just don't sugarcoat it. Some of the other instructors are concerned. Riley stopped walking. Are you... Delgado studied her face, the same green eyes as Nathan, the same stubborn set to her jaw. But there was something else there, too. Something that worried him. I'm concerned you're trying to prove something you don't need to prove. I'm doing my job, Frank. Your job, Not your father's legacy. There's a difference. Riley's expression didn't change, but Delgado saw her hands clench at her sides. He'd hit a nerve. He always did. I know the difference, she said finally. Do you? She walked away before he could answer. The joint training notification came at 0800. Riley was in her small office walls, covered with her father's medals, his photograph in full SEAL gear, a handwritten note in a simple frame. The ocean doesn't care how tough you think you are. Neither should you. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen knocked once and entered without waiting. We've got Army Special Forces arriving at 1400. 5-man team. Joint Inter-Service Defensive Tactics Training. Riley nodded, not looking up from her candidate evaluations. Standard protocol? Mostly. But I need you to run the hand-to-hand demonstration personally. Now Riley looked up. Chen's expression was carefully neutral, too neutral. Why me, specifically? Chen closed the door. Because the team leader is Staff Sergeant Marcus Drake. The name meant nothing to Riley. Should I know him? You should know his reputation. Chen sat down across from her. 3 combat deployments. Bronze Star. Decorated soldier, by all official accounts. And unofficially, 3 sexual harassment complaints, all withdrawn, all involving female military personnel. Chen paused. His father is Major General Roland Drake, Pentagon connections. Every complaint has been handled. Riley felt something cold settle in her stomach. Handled how? Transfers, NDAs, career pressure, the usual playbook for protecting connected predators. And you want me to demonstrate combat techniques on him. I want you to be aware and careful. Chen stood. I've seen your file, Morgan. I know what you're capable of, but Drake doesn't. To him, you're just another female instructor, another target. After Chen left, Riley sat alone in the silence of her office. She looked at her father's photograph, that steady gaze that had seen her through every hard moment of her life. What would you do, Dad? She whispered. The photograph didn't answer, but Riley already knew. Nathan Morgan had spent his career protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. He'd taught her to do the same, and he'd taught her exactly how to handle men like Marcus Drake. They arrived at 1400 hours exactly. Riley heard them before she saw them, the particular swagger of men who'd never been told no in their lives. Boots on concrete, laughter that carried too loud. She was stretching near the training mat when they entered. 5 soldiers in Army PT gear, all fit, all carrying themselves like they owned the building. Her eyes found Drake immediately. 6'3", 220, shoulders that strained his shirt, blonde hair cut regulation short, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite, and eyes. Cold eyes. Eyes that swept the room and landed on her with an expression she'd seen before. Dismissal. Contempt. And something else. Hunger. Gentlemen, Lieutenant Commander Chen's voice cut through the space. Welcome to Naval Special Warfare. This is Instructor Morgan. She'll be running today's defensive tactics demonstration. Drake's smile widened. He nudged the soldier beside him, a corporal with nervous energy and a face like a ferret. Navy sent us a yoga instructor. Laughter from his team. Riley didn't react. Staff Sergeant Drake. She kept her voice level professional. Welcome. Today we'll be covering the Morgan method of threat neutralization. This system was developed over 25 years and has been combat tested in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Yemen. Morgan method. Drake stepped forward, still wearing that smile. Like your name. Coincidence. My father developed it. Master Chief Nathan Morgan. Recognition flickered across several faces. In the special operations community, Morgan was a name that commanded respect. Stories were still told about the instructor who could take down any man, regardless of size, who'd trained 3 generations of SEALs, who'd died in a classified operation that remained sealed to this day. But Drake's expression didn't change. If anything, his smile grew wider. Cool. We've done hand-to-hand. Army Combatives program is pretty comprehensive. I'm familiar with it. Good foundation. Riley moved to the center of the mat. The Morgan method focuses on practical application against larger, stronger opponents. Efficiency over strength. Leverage over power. Theoretical or tested. Combat tested. Multiple engagements. Would you like to see a demonstration? Drake stepped onto the mat without being asked. His team fanned out behind him watching. Chen tensed in the observation area. Riley assessed him in a glance. 220 pounds. Significant reach advantage. Trained in grappling, she could see it in his stance. Confident to the point of arrogance. Rules, he asked. Tap if you need to stop. I'll demonstrate at half speed first, then full speed. I'll try not to hurt you. You won't? Something flickered in his eyes. Irritation. Good. Standard scenario, Riley continued. Aggressor attempts a front grab with intent to control. Defender responds with Morgan Method Technique 14. Watch the sequence. She moved at half speed, showing the hand placement, the pivot, the angle of leverage. Drake played along, reaching for her shoulders. See how the defender uses the attacker's momentum, not fighting force with force, redirecting it. She released him, stepped back. Now full speed, whenever you're ready. Drake's smile turned predatory. You sure I don't want to? I'm sure. He grabbed for her. What happened next took 4 seconds. Riley's hands moved in a pattern burned into her muscle memory through 10,000 repetitions. She caught his right wrist with her left hand, stepped inside his reach, and used his own momentum to pull him off balance. Her right hand found the pressure point at the base of his thumb. She pivoted using her hips as a fulcrum, and suddenly Drake's arm was twisted behind his back at an angle that sent fire through his shoulder. He gasped, tried to muscle out of it, discovered that movement only increased the pain. His face went red, then white. He dropped to one knee. Tap, Riley said quietly. Drake tapped twice against his leg. She released him immediately, stepped back, offered a hand. He ignored it, stood on his own, rubbing his shoulder. His team was frozen, eyes wide. The nervous Corporal Jensen looked like he'd seen a ghost. That's Technique 14, Riley continued, her voice unchanged. Effective against opponents of any size. The key is timing and leverage. Who's next? Jiritsen. The demonstration continued for 2 hours. Riley taught. The soldiers learned. Drake maintained a veneer of professionalism that didn't quite hide the rage simmering beneath. She'd humiliated him, in front of his men, in front of Navy brass, put him on his knees like a child. Men like Marcus Drake didn't forget that. At 16:30, Chen dismissed the group. The soldiers filed out, several offering genuine thanks. Drake was last. He paused at the door, turned back. Interesting technique, he said. Different from what we use. Different branches, different approaches. Right. That smile again, a blade wrapped in courtesy. Maybe we can compare notes sometime. Off duty. I keep professional and personal life separate, Sergeant. Of course. Professional. He lingered a moment longer, his eyes traveling slowly down her body before meeting her gaze again. Then he followed his men out. The door closed. Riley let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Cat. She turned. Delgado had been watching from the gallery the whole time. He was beside her now, his weathered face tight with concern. I saw the way he looked at you. I know that look. I can handle myself, Frank. I know you can. That's not what worries me." He lowered his voice. "Men like Drake, they don't just want to win. They want to dominate, humiliate, destroy. You took something from him today. His pride, his image, in front of witnesses. He volunteered. I demonstrated a technique. And now he's going to spend every minute until he leaves this base trying to get it back." Riley looked at the training mat where she'd put Drake on his knees. Somewhere in this building he was nursing that wounded pride, planning his response. Her father had taught her to recognize predators, had taught her that the most dangerous moment wasn't during the attack, it was before, when you had to decide whether to avoid or engage. "I'll be careful," she told Delgado. "Your father said that same thing, right before Syria." The words hit her like a punch. Delgado's eyes softened immediately. "I'm sorry. That was true." Riley's voice was steady, but something in her chest felt cracked. It was true, and he was right. Being careful didn't save him. She met Delgado's gaze directly. But he didn't die running, Frank. He died fighting. For something that mattered. She gathered her gear and walked toward the door. "Riley." She stopped, but didn't turn around. "Whatever Drake's planning, whatever happens, you don't face it alone. Your father made me promise. At the funeral, I promised I'd look out for you." Riley's hand tightened on the door handle. For a moment she was 8 years old again, watching her father demonstrate a wrist lock in their backyard. 12 learning knife defense while other kids played video games, 16 understanding for the first time that everything he taught her was preparation for a world that wouldn't always be kind. "I know, Frank," she said quietly. "But Dad didn't raise me to need looking after. He raised me to look after others." She walked out into the San Diego afternoon, watching her surroundings, trusting nothing, just like she'd been taught. The next 3 days established a pattern. Drake found reasons to be wherever Riley was. The PT field, the equipment room, the corridor outside her office. Always with that smile. Always with a comment that walked the line of harassment without crossing it. "Looking good today, instructor. Heard you run a tight ship. I like that in a woman. My door's always open if you want to continue our training." Riley documented everything. Times, locations, exact words. Chen had told her to build a paper trail. She was building one. But paper trails didn't stop predators. They just helped prosecutors after the damage was done. On day 3, she made a different kind of call. "NCIS Field Office, San Diego. I need to speak with Special Agent Dominic Vance. Tell him it's regarding Staff Sergeant Marcus Drake." Silence. Then, "Please hold." Vance came on the line 30 seconds later. His voice was careful, measured. "Ms. Morgan, this is unexpected. You know who I am. I know who your father was. And I know you've been documenting Drake's behavior for the past 72 hours. A pause. "We've been watching him too." Riley felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Watching him for what?" "Not over the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow 0900? There's a coffee shop on Orange Avenue. Neutral ground." "What is this about?" "It's about Staff Sergeant Drake. And it's about something much bigger." Vance's voice dropped. "Your father would want you to know. He was investigating the same thing when he died." The line went dead. Riley stood in her kitchen phone, still pressed to her ear, her father's photograph, watching from the wall. What had Nathan Morgan found? And had it gotten him killed? That night Riley couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through possibilities. Her father's death had been classified. Killed in action, they'd said. A mission that went wrong in Syria. No details. No explanation. Just a flag-draped coffin and a grave at Arlington. She'd accepted it because she had to. Because that was the life. Because SEALs died in classified operations all the time, and families learned to live with unanswered questions. But now those questions had teeth. At 0200, she gave up on sleep, put on running clothes, hit the beach. The Pacific was black and cold waves crashing in the darkness. Riley ran hard, pushing until her lungs burned, using physical exhaustion to quiet the mental chaos. Her father had run this same beach, trained on this same sand, built the methods she now taught. What secrets had he died protecting? She was 2 miles into her run when she saw them. 3 figures at the water's edge, standing still in the darkness, watching her. Riley's training kicked in immediately. She altered her course, slightly angling toward the hard-packed sand near the waterline. Better footing if she needed to fight or run. The figures didn't move. She was 50 yards away when she recognized the silhouettes. The nervous Corporal Jensen, the stocky Specialist Williams, and in the center, towering over both of them, Marcus Drake. Riley stopped running. Her heart rate stayed steady. Combat breathing controlled, ready. "Staff Sergeant, little late for a beach stroll." Drake stepped forward. Even in the darkness, she could see that smile. "Could say the same about you, Instructor. What's a pretty thing like you doing out here alone?" "Training. Same as always. See, that's what I don't understand about you." Drake moved closer, 10 feet away now. Jensen and Williams fanned out on either side. "You work so hard, push so hard. For what? To prove you're as good as a man. To be better than most." Drake laughed. "You know, I've been thinking about our little demonstration. That technique you used caught me by surprise. But I've been practicing." He cracked his knuckles, wondering if it would work twice. Riley calculated distances, angles, escape routes. The water on one side, soft sand on the other. 3 hostiles with significant size advantages. No witnesses. Not good odds. But she'd faced worse. "Walk away, Drake. Whatever you're thinking, don't." "Or what?" He was 5 feet away now. "You'll put me on my knees again in front of your Navy buddies." The smile vanished. "That's not happening tonight, sweetheart. Tonight you're going to learn what happens when you disrespect a Special Forces soldier." Jensen shifted uncomfortably. "Sarge, maybe we should—" "Shut up." Drake's eyes never left Riley. "Hold her arms." Riley's world narrowed to crystal clarity. 3 attackers, one armed with a knife. She could see the blade glint at Williams' belt. No backup. No witnesses. But she had something they didn't. 20 years of her father's training, and absolutely no intention of being a victim. Jensen reached for her left arm. She let him grab it for exactly 1 second. Then she pivoted, trapped his wrist, and hyperextended his elbow with a sharp crack. He screamed, clutching his arm. Williams charged. Riley sidestepped, used his momentum to send him face first into the sand. She was on him before he could recover, driving her knee into his kidney. Drake didn't hesitate. He came in fast and hard, fists swinging. But Riley had been waiting for him, training with him in her mind for 3 days, knowing this moment would come. She ducked his first punch, blocked his second, and drove her palm into his solar plexus with every ounce of strength she had. Drake folded, gasped, and then his hand went to his belt. The knife came out. Riley felt time slow down. The blade was 8 inches of black steel, military grade, designed to kill. "I'm going to cut that pretty face," Drake wheezed. "Make sure no man ever looks at you again." He slashed. Wild. Angry. Exactly like her father had taught her to exploit. Riley stepped inside the arc, caught his wrist, and applied pressure to the nerve cluster at the base of his thumb. His fingers spasmed. The knife dropped. She caught it before it hit the sand, and then she had him. Blade to his throat, arm locked behind his back, complete control. "Here's what's going to happen," she said quietly into his ear. "You're going to tell your men to stay down. Then you're going to walk back to your barracks, and tomorrow morning you're going to request a transfer off this base. Understood?" Drake's body trembled with rage. "You think this is over?" "It will be, one way or another." She pressed the blade slightly harder, not enough to cut, enough to make a point. "My father was Master Chief Nathan Morgan. He trained me since I was 12 years old. Every technique, every method, every way to kill a man with my bare hands." She paused. "You're still breathing because I chose not to change that. Don't make me reconsider." She released him with a shove. Drake stumbled forward, caught himself, turned to face her. His eyes were wild with fury and something else now. Fear. "This isn't over," he said. "No," Riley agreed. "I don't think it is." She watched them retreat into the darkness, Drake supporting Jensen Williams, limping behind. 3 Special Forces soldiers beaten by a woman half their size. But Riley felt no triumph, only a cold certainty that she'd just escalated a war she might not be able to win. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. 0900 still works, but bring everything you have on Drake. The investigation just got more complicated. Vance. Riley looked at her father's knife in her hand. The same blade he'd carried for 20 years. The same blade he'd given her on her 18th birthday with a single instruction: only use it when there's no other choice. And when you do, make sure they never get up. She'd let Drake get up. Let him walk away. Part of her wondered if that was a mistake, but a bigger part of her knew that whatever was coming next, whatever Vance had discovered about her father's death, she was going to need answers more than she needed revenge. She pocketed the knife and ran toward home. Tomorrow would bring truth. Or it would bring war. Either way, she'd be ready. Riley arrived at the coffee shop at 0845. She'd learned punctuality from her father early was on time. On time was late, late was unacceptable. Vance was already there. He sat in the corner booth, back to the wall, eyes on the door. Classic operator positioning. A cup of coffee steamed untouched in front of him. "Ms. Morgan." He didn't stand, just gestured to the seat across from him. "Thank you for coming. You said my father was investigating something when he died." "Straight to business." "Good. I respected that about Nathan, too." Riley slid into the booth, but didn't relax. "What do you know about my father's death?" Vance studied her for a long moment. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him, because he reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn manila folder. "What I'm about to tell you is classified. Technically, I could lose my career for sharing it." He slid the folder across the table. "But your father saved my life in Fallujah. Carried me 2 miles with a bullet in his shoulder. Some debts don't have expiration dates." Riley opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photographs, financial records, communications intercepts, and at the top, a name that made her blood freeze. Chief Petty Officer Victor Hale. "You know him?" Vance asked. "Uncle Vic." Riley's voice came out strange, disconnected. "He was my father's best friend. Served together for 15 years. He gave the eulogy at Dad's memorial. He's also running the largest military equipment smuggling operation we've seen in 20 years. Riley stared at the photograph. Victor Hale, 52 years old. The man who'd taught her to fish. Who'd brought her birthday presents every year until she turned 18. Who'd held her mother while she sobbed at Nathan's funeral. That's impossible. $3 million in stolen military equipment over the past 2 years. Night vision systems. body armor, modified weapons. Vance's voice was flat professional. All of it ending up in the hands of domestic militia groups, extremists, people on FBI watch lists. Uncle Vic would never. People change, Ms. Morgan, especially when the system fails them. Vance pulled out another document. VA denied his disability claim 4 times. His wife has stage 3 cancer. Medical bills are crushing them. He's bitter desperate and still has contacts throughout the special operations community. Riley's hands trembled as she flipped through the evidence. Bank records showing cash deposits, surveillance photos of Hale meeting with men in tactical gear, intercepted messages using coded language. What does this have to do with Drake? Drake is his courier, has been for 18 months. Vance leaned forward. Last night's attack on you wasn't random. Drake has been escalating for weeks. We think Hale told him to back off focus on the operation, but Drake doesn't take orders well. His ego got in the way. So I'm what, collateral damage in your investigation? You were, until last night. Vance paused. You beat 3 Special Forces soldiers single-handed. Drake's furious, humiliated. He's going to do something stupid. And when he does, it might give us the opening we need. Riley closed the folder. What exactly are you asking me to do? There's a deal going down this Friday. Warehouse in El Cajon. Big shipment, biggest they've ever moved. Drake's been bragging about a business opportunity to his men. We need someone inside. You want me to go undercover with the man who tried to assault me. I want you to get close enough to confirm the transaction. Video evidence of money and weapons changing hands. Then we move in. Vance's expression didn't change. I won't lie to you. It's dangerous. Hale is smart. If he suspects anything, he knows me. He's known me since I was 8 years old. Which is why you're perfect. You can get close to him in ways no other operative could. Vance leaned back. But there's something else you should know. Something about your father. Riley's chest tightened. What about him? Nathan was investigating Hale when he died. He'd found discrepancies in equipment manifests from their last deployment together. He was building a case. Vance's voice dropped. 3 days before the Syria mission, he told me he had enough evidence to bring Hale in. 3 days later, he was dead. The coffee shop seemed to shrink around Riley. The noise faded. Everything faded except Vance's words echoing in her skull. You're saying Uncle Vic got my father killed. I'm saying the timing is suspicious. The mission that killed Nathan was based on intelligence that turned out to be fabricated. Someone fed bad information to command. Someone who knew exactly where Nathan would be and when. Riley couldn't breathe. Her father's face swam in her memory that last morning before he'd deployed, standing in the kitchen making pancakes. He'd hugged her for too long, said, I love you 3 times, like he knew. I want in, she said. Vance nodded slowly. I thought you might, but I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. This isn't a training exercise. These are killers. If they discover what you're doing, they won't. Your father was the best operator I ever knew. They still got him. Riley met his eyes directly. Then I'll be better. Delgado found her at the Morgan Training Center 2 hours later. She was alone on the mat, running through combat sequences with a ferocity that made him pause at the door. Strike. Block. Counter. Each movement sharp enough to kill. Riley! She didn't stop. Strike. Block. Counter. Riley, stop! She drove her fist into the heavy bag hard enough to make it swing wildly, then turned to face him. Sweat dripped down her face. Her knuckles were raw. You heard, she said. Vance called me. Wanted to know if I could talk you out of it. Can you? Delgado walked onto the mat, his old bones protesting every step. He stopped 3 feet from her, close enough to see the storm in her eyes. Your father made me promise to look after you. I know. He also made me promise something else. Something I never told you. Delgado's voice roughened. He said if anything ever happened to him and you wanted to know the truth, I should help you find it. Even if it was dangerous. Even if it hurt. He reached out, placed a hand on her shoulder. Nathan knew you, Kat. Better than anyone. He knew you'd never stop until you had answers. Riley's composure cracked. Just for a moment. Frank, he was investigating Uncle Vic. 3 days later, he was dead. I know. Did you know then? When it happened, Delgado's silence was answer enough. God. Riley pulled away. How long have you known? I suspected. Never had proof. Hale covered his tracks well. Delgado's face aged 10 years in the span of seconds. I should have told you. I should have. Why didn't you? Because you were 22 years old and grieving. Because I thought I could handle it myself. Because I failed. His voice broke. Your father trusted me to protect his family. I let him down. I let you down. Riley stared at the man who'd been like a grandfather to her. The man who'd trained her alongside Nathan, who'd been at every birthday, every graduation, every important moment of her life. Does Vance know about the Syria intel? He suspects, can't prove it. If I go in Friday night, if I can get Hale talking, it's too dangerous. So was what Dad did every day for 25 years. Riley grabbed her water bottle, took a long drink. I'm not asking permission, Frank. I'm telling you, I'm going in. Delgado was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Then I'm going to be in that command van, watching every second. If anything goes wrong, it won't. If it does, I'm coming to get you. Personally. And I don't care how many people I have to go through. Riley almost smiled. Dad would say the same thing. Where do you think he learned it? The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation. NCIS technical specialists fitted her with recording equipment, a camera disguised as a jacket button, an audio recorder hidden in her sports bra, a transmitter smaller than a credit card. The panic button was disguised as a tube of lipstick. Twist the bottom twice fast, the senior tech explained. We'll have your location within 5 seconds. SWAT breaches in 90. Dr. Angela Morrison, the operational psychologist, spent 6 hours running her through scenarios, role-playing confrontations, testing her emotional control. Drake will push your buttons, Morrison said. He'll make comments, touch you without permission, test how far he can go. I can handle it. Can you handle it without reacting? Without giving him any indication that you want to kill him? Riley thought about Drake's hands on her, his breath in her face, the knife he'd pulled on the beach. Yes. What about Hale? The man who may have gotten your father killed. That was harder. Riley closed her eyes, centered herself, found the cold place inside where emotion couldn't reach. I'll be a camera, she said, not a participant. Friday morning, her phone buzzed. Text from Drake. Party tonight, 2100, 2847 Industrial Way, El Cajon. Dress casual. Going to be fun. Riley forwarded the message to Vance, then spent an hour in front of her father's photograph. I'm going to finish what you started, she told him. Whatever it costs. The warehouse was exactly what she'd expected. Industrial. Isolated. 2 guards at the entrance, both carrying themselves like former military. Probably were. Riley parked her truck a block away, checked her equipment one final time, and became someone else. Madison. Fitness contractor. A woman intrigued by Drake's alpha energy. A woman who didn't ask too many questions. She walked toward the entrance heels, clicking on asphalt. The guards watched her approach. Help you? Marcus invited me. Madison. Radio crackle. Then Drake's voice. Yeah, send her in. Inside the warehouse had been transformed into something between a social club and an armory. 30 men filled the space. Music, beer, poker table in one corner, and against the far wall crates labeled automotive parts. Drake spotted her immediately. His face lit up with predatory satisfaction. "Madison, you actually came. You said it would be interesting." "Oh, it will be." He took her arm possessively. "Come on, let me introduce you around." He walked her through the crowd, names she catalogued, faces the camera captured, militia members, former military, men whose eyes held nothing but cold calculation. "And this," Drake said, steering her toward the crates, "is the guy who makes everything happen." Victor Hale turned. Riley's heart stopped. He looked exactly as she remembered. 52 years old, built like a fire hydrant. Silver hair cropped short. Deep-set eyes that had seen 3 wars. Those eyes met hers, and she saw recognition flicker immediately. "Madison," Drake continued, oblivious. "She does fitness work at the base." Hale didn't respond, didn't blink, just stared at Riley with an expression that made her blood turn to ice. "What's your last name?" he asked quietly. The moment stretched. In the command van, Delgado leaned forward. Vance's hand hovered over the radio. Riley made a decision. "Morgan," she said. "Riley Morgan. Nathan was my father." The warehouse went silent. Even the music seemed to fade. Drake's head snapped toward her. "What?" But Hale's expression was unreadable. "Nathan's daughter. You look like your mother." "Everyone says that." "Why are you here, Kat?" The use of her nickname was deliberate, testing her, probing for weakness. "Drake invited me. I heard some of Dad's old teammates got together sometimes. I wanted to see for myself." She held his gaze. "I wanted to see what his friends were up to." Hale studied her for 10 seconds. 20. An eternity. Then his expression softened. Just slightly. "Nathan was the best man I ever served with. You're welcome here, kiddo." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "But this isn't the kind of party your dad would want you at. Stay close to Drake. Don't wander. And when I say it's time to leave, you leave." "Understood." Drake was staring at her with new eyes. "You're Nathan Morgan's daughter, the Nathan Morgan. Does that matter?" "Hell yes, it matters. Your dad was a legend." His smile returned, but different now. Calculating. "You should have told me. It didn't seem relevant. Everything about you seems relevant now." The next 2 hours were the longest of Riley's life. She smiled, laughed at Drake's jokes, let him touch her arm, her shoulder, her back. Every moment was recorded. Every word captured. Every face documented. The buyers arrived at 2200. 4 men from Montana. Cash in duffel bags. Eyes that held no soul. Hale met them near the crates. 40 M4 rifles, select fire capability restored, 25 sets of body armor, 15 night vision units. The militia leader inspected the merchandise. Price was $200,000. Cash in the truck. The duffel bags appeared. Hale began counting. Riley positioned herself near a support column. Camera pointed at the transaction, evidence accumulating with every second. And then Grant Foley, the militia leader, looked directly at her. "The girl's recording us." Everything stopped. "Look at her jacket button," Foley continued. "Camera lens. Saw the same tech in federal raids." 30 men turned toward Riley. Hale's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. "Kat." His voice was soft, dangerous. "What did you do?" Riley's hand moved toward the panic button. She never reached it. Drake grabbed her wrist, twisted hard enough to make her gasp. "Fed," he spat. "You're a goddamn Fed. Let go of me." "Like hell." He wrenched her arm behind her back. Hold her. Find the wire. 2 militia members moved in. Hands grabbed her jacket. Pulled it open. The camera button was ripped away. Audio's in her bra, someone said. Riley's composure shattered as hands reached for her. She exploded. Her elbow caught Drake in the face. She spun, drove her knee into the nearest man's groin, grabbed his weapon as he fell. Gunfire erupted. Riley dove behind a crate as rounds punched through the air where she'd been standing. She came up shooting not to kill, but to create chaos. "Federal agents!" she screamed. "Building is surrounded!" The lie bought her 3 seconds. 3 seconds of confusion. 3 seconds to reach cover. In the command van, Vance was screaming orders. "Breach, breach! All teams go!" SWAT moved. 90 seconds to entry. But 90 seconds was an eternity in a firefight. Riley counted rounds. 6 left. 8 hostiles with clear line of sight. The door was 30 feet away. She wasn't going to make it. Then she saw Hale moving toward the stairs, toward the second-floor office, and in his hand a detonator. The building's wired. Riley screamed into her transmitter. "Hale has explosives!" She didn't think, didn't calculate, just moved, sprinting across open ground, rounds cracking past her. One caught her shoulder, grazed at fire blooming across her deltoid. She didn't stop. Hale was at the top of the stairs when she reached the bottom. "Victor, don't!" He turned. The detonator was clutched in his fist. Dead man's switch. The moment he let go, everyone died. "Stay back, Cat. Please, please don't do this. I'm already dead." His voice broke. "Prison. Life sentence. Susan dies alone while I rot in Leavenworth." He held up the switch. "At least this way it's quick. Is that what Dad would want? Your dad is dead, because of you." The words exploded out of her. 3 years of grief. 3 years of unanswered questions, all of it erupting in a single accusation. Hale flinched like she'd shot him. "You fed the bad intel?" Riley continued, her voice cracking. "The Syria mission. You knew where he'd be. You knew they were waiting." "No." Hale's hand trembled. "No, I would never." "Vance found the records. The communications. You sold my father for smuggling profits." "That's not..." Hale's face crumpled. "I didn't know. Cat, I swear to God I didn't know they'd kill him. They said they just wanted him out of the way. Delayed. I thought..." "You thought what?" "I thought I could save Susan and keep Nathan alive. I thought I could do both." Tears streamed down his face. "I was wrong. God, I was so wrong." Below them, SWAT was breaching. Flashbangs, gunfire, screaming. But Riley couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The man who'd held her at her father's funeral had arranged her father's death. "He trusted you," she whispered. "He loved you." "I know." Hale's thumb moved on the switch. "And I have to live with that. Every day for the rest of my life." He looked at her, really looked, and she saw the man she remembered. The man who'd taught her to fish. Who'd told her stories about her father's heroics. Who'd been Uncle Vic for 25 years. "Your dad would be proud of you," he said softly. "What you did tonight. Coming in here. Fighting back. He always said you were stronger than he was." "Victor, tell Susan I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her. Tell her..." His thumb released. Riley moved. She crossed the distance in 3 steps, caught his wrist, pried the switch from his grip before gravity could complete the circuit. They struggled for 1 terrible second. Then Hale went limp, stopped fighting. Riley held the switch with white knuckles. Delgado's voice crackled in her ear. "Cat Riley report." "I'm okay," she breathed. "I've got the detonator. Hale is secure. EOD is on the way. Don't move. Don't let go of that switch." Riley looked at Hale. He was on his knees, hands behind his head, tears dripping onto the concrete floor. "Why didn't you let me do it?" he asked. "Because Dad would have wanted you to face this, not run from it." SWAT reached them 30 seconds later. EOD 3 minutes after that. They secured the device, led Hale away in handcuffs. Riley stood at the top of the stairs watching them load him into the transport vehicle. 25 years of memories. Birthdays. Holidays. The funeral where he'd sobbed over her father's casket. All of it a lie. Delgado appeared beside her. He didn't speak, just put his arm around her shoulders and held on while she shook. "It's over," he said finally. But Riley knew better. Some things never really ended. They just changed shape. The interrogation room smelled of stale coffee and fluorescent desperation. Riley sat across from Victor Hale, a metal table between them, 2 armed guards at the door. 3 hours had passed since the warehouse. Her shoulder still burned where the bullet had grazed it. The medics had wanted to take her to the hospital. She'd refused. She needed answers first. "You have 5 minutes," Vance had told her. "That's all I can give you before the lawyers shut everything down." 5 minutes to understand 25 years of betrayal. Hale looked broken. His silver hair was matted with sweat. His hands trembled in the cuffs. But his eyes, those deep-set eyes that had watched her grow up, held something Riley hadn't expected. Relief. "I'm glad it's over," he said quietly. "I've been waiting 3 years for someone to catch me. Part of me hoped it would be you." "Why?" "Because Nathan would have wanted it that way. His daughter, finishing what he started." Hale laughed bitterly. "He always said you were the best of both of us. His skill. Your mother's heart. I see it now." Riley leaned forward. "Tell me about Syria." "You already know." "I want to hear you say it." Hale closed his eyes. When he opened them again, tears had gathered at the corners. "The operation was supposed to be simple. Extract an asset from Damascus. Your dad's team, 6 operators in and out in 48 hours. His voice cracked. But someone tipped off the Syrians. They were waiting. Ambush in the extraction zone. "You?" "Not directly. I gave information to people who gave information to other people. I didn't know they'd use it to—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "That's a lie. I knew. Somewhere deep down I knew. I just didn't want to believe it." "Who did you tell?" "A contractor. Private military. He said they just wanted to delay the mission, create confusion, give them time to move their own assets out of the area." Hale's hands clenched. "They paid me $50,000. $50,000 to betray my best friend." Riley felt sick. "For money?" "For Susan. She needed surgery, experimental treatment. Insurance wouldn't cover it. VA wouldn't help." His voice rose with desperate justification. "I tried everything else. Loans, charity, selling everything we owned. Nothing worked, and then this guy shows up, offers me a way out." "Don't!" Riley's voice was ice. "Don't you dare make this about her!" "I'm not making excuses. There are no excuses." Hale met her eyes directly. "I killed my best friend for $50,000. I live with that every second of every day. When I close my eyes, I see his face. When I sleep, I dream about the ambush, the calls over the radio, the sound of him dying. He didn't die in the ambush." Hale froze. "What? Dad survived the initial attack. He got his team to cover, held off the Syrians for 6 hours until extraction arrived." Riley's voice was steady, but her hands shook beneath the table. "He took 11 rounds protecting his men. The last one severed his femoral artery. He bled out on the helicopter. His last words were asking about his team." The color drained from Hale's face. "He didn't know you betrayed him," Riley continued. "He died thinking you were his brother. His best friend. He died asking Delgado to check on you because he was worried about Susan's health." Hale made a sound something between a sob and a scream. His entire body convulsed. Oh God. Oh Jesus Christ. You want absolution? You won't get it from me. Riley stood. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Susan will die alone. And every morning when you wake up, you'll remember what you did to the only person who ever truly believed in you. She walked to the door. Riley. She stopped but didn't turn. Your father forgave me. I know he did. That was who he was. Hale's voice was barely a whisper. But I never deserved it. And I never will. Riley opened the door. No, she said. You won't. The hallway outside was empty except for Delgado. He'd been waiting the entire time standing guard like he'd done for Nathan for 30 years. Did you get what you needed? He asked. Riley walked past him without answering. Her legs carried her automatically through security checkpoints past armed guards into the parking lot where the first light of dawn was breaking over San Diego. She made it to her truck before the tears came. Not gentle tears, not quiet tears. These were the kind that ripped through her chest like shrapnel, shaking her entire body with the force of grief she'd suppressed for 3 years. Her father hadn't just died. He'd been murdered. By someone he loved. For $50,000. Delgado found her 20 minutes later, still crying, still shaking. He didn't say anything. Just climbed into the passenger seat, put his weathered hand on her shoulder, and waited. I want to kill him, Riley finally whispered. I know it's wrong. I know Dad would be disappointed. But I want to go back in there and I know. How do you live with it? Knowing what he did. Delgado was quiet for a long moment. You don't. Not really. You just learn to carry it. Like every other impossible thing we've had to carry. Did you suspect when it happened? I suspected something was wrong with the intel. The mission felt off from the start. But Hale... He shook his head. Never. Not for a second. Nathan trusted him with everything. His career, his family, his life. How do you suspect someone like that? Riley wiped her face with her sleeve. What happens now? Now the system takes over. Prosecutors, trials, justice. Delgado paused. Or what passes for it? That's not enough. It never is. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Drake was charged with assault weapons trafficking and conspiracy. His father's attempts to intervene collapsed when the warehouse footage leaked to the press. 22 years federal prison. No possibility of parole. Hale pled guilty to everything. Weapons trafficking. Conspiracy. And after Riley's testimony, accessory to murder. 15 years with the possibility of reduction for cooperation. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But something. The 3 women Drake had terrorized before Torres Kim Hart were contacted by prosecutors. Their original complaints were reopened. A class action lawsuit was filed against Major General Roland Drake for institutional cover-up. Riley testified in closed sessions. Her identity protected her impact undeniable. And through it all, she kept teaching. Every morning at 05:30. Every evolution. Every candidate who wanted to quit, she was there pushing them, breaking them down, building them back up. Because that's what her father would have done. Because stopping meant feeling. And feeling meant drowning. 3 weeks after the warehouse, Vance called her into his office. We found something. He slid a tablet across the desk. On the screen was a document classified, heavily redacted, but unmistakable. The contractor Hale mentioned, the one who paid him for the intel, we identified him. Riley's blood turned cold. Who? Raymond Cross, former CIA. Left the agency in 2015 under suspicious circumstances. Now runs a private military company out of Dubai. Vance zoomed in on a photograph. Hard face, cold eyes, a smile that didn't reach anywhere near human. He's the one who sold your father's location to the Syrians. Where is he? That's the problem. He's protected. International connections. Clients in 12 countries. The kind of man who doesn't get arrested, he gets negotiated with. So he walks free. Not necessarily. Vance leaned forward. Cross is coming to San Diego next month. Business meeting with potential clients. If we could get someone close to him. No. Delgado's voice came from the doorway. Neither of them had heard him enter. Absolutely not. You're not sending her after the man who killed Nathan. Frank, she's 25 years old. She's already risked her life once for this investigation. You want to throw her at a professional killer with CIA training and international resources? Delgado moved between Riley and Vance. Over my dead body. It's not your decision, Riley said quietly. Both men turned to face her. It's mine. My father. My life. My choice. Kat. I've been training for this since I was 12 years old. Everything Dad taught me. Everything you taught me. All of it pointed toward this moment. She stood. Raymond Cross killed my father. I'm going to make sure he pays for it. He'll kill you. He can try. The silence stretched. Finally, Vance spoke. I'm not asking you to engage him directly. Just get close, gather evidence. If we can prove he sold classified intelligence to foreign governments, he'll face a military tribunal. Death penalty eligible. And if he recognizes me, he won't. Cross never met Nathan personally. He operated through intermediaries. To him, you're just another potential recruit, a skilled operator with military connections and flexible morals. Riley thought about her father. About the 11 rounds he'd taken protecting his men. About the helicopter, where he'd bled out, asking about everyone except himself. When do I start? The operation took 2 weeks to prepare. Riley's cover identity was constructed with meticulous care. Madison Cole. Former Marine. Dishonorable discharge for assaulting a superior officer. Looking for work that didn't ask too many questions. The psychological evaluation cleared her. The weapons qualification exceeded expectations. The operational briefing lasted 4 hours. Cross is paranoid, Vance explained. Multiple security layers. Background checks on everyone who comes near him. You'll need to be perfect. I'm always perfect. You'll need to be better. The meeting was arranged through a mutual contact, a retired Special Forces colonel who'd worked with Cross in Afghanistan. He vouched for Madison Cole. Set up an introduction at a high-end restaurant in La Jolla. Riley arrived at 1900 hours. Black dress, minimal makeup. Her father's knife strapped to her thigh beneath the fabric. Cross was already there. He was smaller than she'd expected. 5'10". Lean. Silver hair swept back from a face that belonged on a corporate board, not a wanted poster. His eyes tracked her approach with the cold assessment of a predator evaluating prey. Ms. Cole. He didn't stand. Didn't offer his hand. Colonel Harrison speaks highly of you. He's too kind. He says you have a particular set of skills that could be useful to my organization. Depends on the organization. Cross smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Direct. I appreciate that. Please sit. Riley sat across from him, hyper-aware of every movement, every expression, every micro-signal her body might betray. Tell me about yourself, Cross said. You already know about me. You ran a background check the moment Harrison mentioned my name. I know your record. I want to know you. I'm good at my job. I don't ask questions. I don't develop attachments. Riley held his gaze. And I don't like men who waste my time. Cross studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a genuine sound that somehow made him more terrifying. You remind me of someone I used to work with, Nathan Morgan. Ever hear of him? Riley's heart stopped. The SEAL. Everyone's heard of him. I knew him, professionally. Cross sipped his wine. Brilliant operator. Best I ever saw. But he had a weakness. He cared too much. About his men, his mission, his principles. He set down his glass. That's what got him killed. I don't have that problem. No, I don't suppose you do. The dinner lasted 2 hours. Cross probed. Riley deflected. Each answer carefully calibrated to reveal just enough truth to be believable without exposing the lie beneath. By the time dessert arrived, Cross had offered her a job. 6 months contract, overseas work, details classified until you sign, and he slid a card across the table. Think about it. Call that number when you're ready. And if I'm not interested, then we finish our wine and never see each other again. Cross's smile sharpened. But you are interested. I can see it in your eyes. That hunger. That need to prove yourself. Nathan had it too. He stood, dropped $300 on the table, and walked out without looking back. Riley sat alone in the restaurant, the card burning in her hand. She'd done it, gotten close, earned his trust. Now came the hard part. Back at the safe house, she reported to Vance via encrypted video. He mentioned my father by name, said he knew him professionally. Vance's expression darkened. He's testing you. Or he's arrogant, thinks he's untouchable. Maybe both. What's your read? Riley thought about Cross's eyes, the coldness there, the absolute absence of humanity. He's dangerous, more than we anticipated, but he's also vain. He wants to be admired. That's a weakness. Can you exploit it? I can try. Trying isn't good enough. If Cross suspects anything, he won't. 3 days later, Riley called the number on Cross's card. I'm in. The contract was signed in a private office downtown. No witnesses, no lawyers. Just Cross Riley and a document that would make her complicit in whatever came next. Welcome to the team, Ms. Cole. Cross shook her hand. His grip was cold. Training begins tomorrow. Dubai. Private flight. Pack light. What exactly will I be training for? You'll learn soon enough. Cross released her hand. One piece of advice. In my organization, loyalty is everything. Betray me and you'll discover exactly how Nathan Morgan died. In detail. The threat hung in the air between them. Riley didn't blink. I don't betray people who pay well. Good. Then we'll get along just fine. That night in her apartment, Riley stood before her father's photograph. I found him, Dad. The man who sold you out. The man who got you killed. She touched the glass over his face. I'm going to destroy everything he's built, and then I'm going to watch him pay for what he did. The photograph stared back with eternal silence. But somewhere deep inside, Riley felt her father's presence, his approval, his love, and something else, his warning. The path she was walking led only one direction, toward darkness, toward revenge, toward becoming something Nathan Morgan had spent his entire life fighting against. Riley knew the risks. She accepted them anyway, because some debts could only be paid in blood, and she intended to collect every drop. Dubai was a furnace wrapped in gold. Riley spent 6 weeks inside Cross's compound learning his operation from the inside, training with his men, earning their trust, recording everything. The private military company was a front. Cross sold intelligence to the highest bidder, governments, corporations, terrorist organizations, anyone with enough money and few enough morals. He'd sold Nathan Morgan for $50,000. He'd sold hundreds of others for far more. Riley documented it all. Names, dates, account numbers. The evidence accumulated like ammunition in a magazine, each piece bringing her closer to the moment she could pull the trigger. But Cross was careful. Paranoid. His inner circle was small, and he kept his most sensitive operations compartmentalized. To get the final evidence, the proof that would connect him directly to her father's death, Riley needed access to his private server. That required trust she hadn't yet earned. On week 7, Cross summoned her to his office. "You've impressed me, Ms. Cole." He sat behind a desk that cost more than most houses. "Your skills are exceptional. Your discretion impeccable." "I aim to please. I have a job for you, personal, sensitive." Cross folded his hands. "Complete it successfully, and you'll become part of my inner circle. Full access, full trust." "What's the job?" "There's a man in San Diego, former NCIS agent. He's been investigating my operations for the past 3 years. Cross's expression didn't change. "I need him eliminated." Riley's blood turned to ice. "Eliminated how?" "Permanently." "You want me to kill a federal agent?" "I want you to solve a problem. The method is your choice." Cross leaned forward. "Can you do it?" Riley thought fast. The agent had to be Vance. Cross had discovered the investigation. Everything she'd built was about to collapse. "Who is he?" "Dominic Vance, San Diego field office." Cross slid a folder across the desk. "Everything you need is in there. Address, schedule, security details." Riley opened the folder. Vance's photograph stared back at her. "Timeline. 2 weeks. Make it look like an accident. Natural causes. Anything that doesn't lead back to me. And my payment, $300,000, plus full partnership in my organization." Cross smiled that cold smile. "Do we have a deal?" Riley closed the folder. "We have a deal." She flew back to San Diego that night on Cross's private jet. The moment she landed, she contacted Delgado through their emergency protocol. "Cross knows about Vance. He wants me to kill him." Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you?" "Just landed. I need to warn Vance. Now." "Go to the safe house. I'll bring him there." Riley drove through San Diego's midnight streets, her mind racing. 6 weeks of work, 6 weeks of building trust, all of it unraveling because Cross had discovered what they were doing. How had he found out the safe house was a nondescript apartment in North Park? Riley arrived first, swept for bugs, confirmed it was clean. 20 minutes later, Delgado arrived with Vance. The NCIS agent looked tired, older than she remembered. "Cross gave me 2 weeks to kill you," Riley said without preamble. "He knows about the investigation." Vance's expression didn't change. "We suspected he might." "You suspected, and you didn't tell me." "We couldn't risk compromising your position." "My position is already compromised. The moment I don't deliver, Cross will know I'm working against him." Delgado stepped between them. "Then we accelerate the timeline. Kat, what evidence do you have?" Riley pulled out a flash drive. Financial records, communications, client lists, enough to destroy his operation. She paused. "But not enough to connect him directly to my father's death. That information is on his private server. I was 2 weeks away from accessing it." "Forget the server," Vance said. "What you have is enough for prosecution." "Prosecution isn't enough." Riley's voice sharpened. "I want him to pay for what he did to my father. Personally. Specifically. I want him to know that Nathan Morgan's daughter brought him down. That's revenge, not justice. Maybe I'm okay with that. Your father wouldn't be." The words hit her like a slap. Riley turned away, struggling to control the emotions surging through her. Delgado's hand touched her shoulder. "Kat, listen to me. Nathan spent his entire life serving something bigger than himself. His mission, his team, his country. He wouldn't want you to throw that away for vengeance. He's dead because of Cross. He's dead because he was a hero who put others before himself. That's the legacy he left you. Not anger, not revenge, service. Delgado turned her to face him. You have a choice. You can become the darkness you're fighting, or you can honor your father by being the light he raised you to be. Riley looked at the flash drive in her hand. 6 weeks of work. Evidence that would destroy Cross's empire, even if it didn't give her the personal satisfaction she craved. What's the play? She asked finally. Vance took control. We stage your death. Make Cross think you were compromised before you could complete the assignment. That buys us time to process the evidence and build the case. And Cross, once we have warrants, Interpol moves on his compound. He'll be arrested, extradited, tried. Vance paused. It won't be quick. It won't be dramatic. But it will be justice. That's not enough. It has to be. Riley closed her eyes. Her father's face swam in her memory. Not the photograph on her wall, the real man. The one who'd taught her to fight, to survive, to protect others even when it cost everything. Okay, she whispered. Do it. The staged death was elaborate. Car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway. Riley's vehicle went over a cliff, exploded on impact. The body inside was a training dummy, with her DNA planted at the scene, hair, blood, skin cells. News reports confirmed the death of Madison Cole. Former Marine suspected criminal. Cross received the information through his sources and expressed regret at losing a promising operative. The investigation continued without her. Riley spent the next 2 months in hiding. Safe house in Montana. No contact with anyone except Delgado and Vance. She trained. She waited. She tried not to think about Cross walking free while bureaucracy ground slowly forward. On day 63, Vance called. We got him. Riley sat down. Her legs wouldn't support her. What happened? Interpol raid. 23 arrests across 4 countries. Cross was taken in Dubai. He's being extradited as we speak. The evidence held, better than held. One of his lieutenants flipped, gave us everything including the communication logs from the Syria operation. Vance's voice softened. We can prove he sold your father's location. It's enough for a military tribunal. Death penalty eligible. Riley couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 3 years of grief. 6 weeks of undercover work. 2 months of hiding. All of it culminating in a single phone call. Kat, you still there? I'm here. Her voice cracked. What happens now? Now you come home. The investigation is declassified. Your role can be acknowledged. There's going to be a ceremony. I don't want a ceremony. Your father would. Riley returned to San Diego on a Thursday morning. The Naval Special Warfare Center had changed in her absence. A new building had been constructed, the Morgan Training Center, named for her father. His photograph hung in the lobby, watching over every candidate who passed through. The ceremony was small. Captain James Wright, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, Delgado, a few senior instructors who'd known Nathan Morgan. Petty Officer Riley Morgan. Wright read from the citation, for heroic achievement involving exceptional courage and devotion to duty in the conduct of undercover operations against a hostile criminal network responsible for the deaths of American service members. The Navy and Marine Corps medal was pinned to her chest, the same medal her father had earned 3 times. After the ceremony, Wright pulled her aside. We're creating a new position, advanced physical training and defensive tactics. Instructor. Your father's methods formally codified. The Morgan method. He handed her a folder. It's yours if you want it. Riley opened the folder. Curriculum. Training schedules. A list of candidates who would pass through her hands. You want me to teach? I want you to build something that outlasts all of us. Your father started it. You can finish it. She looked at the photograph on the wall. Nathan Morgan in his prime, demonstrating a technique that had saved countless lives. Yes, she said. I'll do it. The trial of Raymond Cross lasted 4 months. Riley testified twice her identity protected behind a screen. She described the operation, the evidence, the moment she'd sat across from the man who'd killed her father and smiled. Cross showed no emotion throughout. Not when the evidence was presented. Not when his lieutenants testified against him. Not when the verdict was read, guilty on all counts. Espionage, conspiracy, accessory to murder in the deaths of 6 American service members, including Master Chief Nathan Morgan. Sentenced death by lethal injection. Cross was escorted from the courtroom in chains. As he passed Riley's position, he stopped. The guards tried to move him along, but he resisted just long enough to speak. You're Nathan's daughter, aren't you? Riley didn't answer. I knew it the moment I saw you. Same eyes, same intensity. Cross smiled. He would have been proud of you. Just like I would have been proud of you if things had been different. Nothing could have been different. Maybe, maybe not. The guards pulled him forward. He called back over his shoulder. Your father died well. Fought until the end. Made me respect him even as I destroyed him. Riley watched him disappear through the doors. Delgado appeared beside her. You okay? He wanted me to be angry, to give him the satisfaction of knowing he still had power over me. Did he? Riley thought about the question. About the rage that had driven her for 3 years. About the revenge she'd wanted so desperately. No, she said finally. He's just a small man who made terrible choices. My father was a giant who made noble ones. There's no comparison. Nathan would be proud to hear you say that. I know. Riley took a deep breath. Let's go home. 6 months later, Riley stood in the Morgan Training Center running the Advanced Defensive Tactics course for 30 SEAL candidates. Among them were 4 women, the largest group of female candidates in BUD/S history. One of them, Petty Officer Jessica Reyes, struggled against a male opponent who outweighed her by 80 pounds. Problem candidate. Reyes was breathing hard. He's too strong, ma'am. Strength is irrelevant. Show me technique 14. Reyes hesitated, then executed the move. Her opponent went down hard. Riley helped him up. What did you learn? That I underestimated her, ma'am. Wrong. You learned that assumptions get you killed. Respect everyone's capability. She looked at Reyes. Again. This time he won't hold back. They trained for another hour. When it was over, Riley dismissed them to lunch. Delgado found her alone on the mat, stretching muscles that ached from the morning's work. You're pushing them hard. Dad's standard. No higher, no lower. The female candidates are performing above average. They're performing at the level I expect. Gender doesn't matter. Only capability. Delgado sat down beside her. I heard from Vance this morning. Cross's execution is scheduled for next month. Riley nodded, but didn't respond. Do you want to be there? Witness it. She thought about the question for a long moment. No. No, he's already dead to me. Has been since the moment the verdict was read. Riley stood, stretched her back. I'm not interested in watching him die. I'm interested in building something he could never destroy. Delgado smiled. Your father said something similar once. After a mission went bad, lost 2 men. He was devastated. What did he say? He said the best revenge against death was life. building something that outlasted the darkness. Riley looked around the training center, her father's photograph on the wall, his methods in the curriculum, his legacy in every candidate who passed through. He was right, she said. As usual. That evening, Riley stood at the beach where her father had trained 1,000 SEALs over 20 years. The sun was setting, painting the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson. The same colors that had been there when Nathan Morgan ran this sand. The same colors that would be there long after Riley was gone. She held his dog tags in her hand, worn thin from years against his chest, now warm against hers. "I finished it, Dad," she whispered. "Cross is gone. Hale is paying for what he did. Your methods are being taught to a new generation." The waves crashed. The wind blew. The world continued turning. "I understand now what you were trying to teach me. It was never about being the toughest person in the room. It was about making sure the room was full of people tough enough to protect what matters." She pressed the dog tags to her lips. "I miss you. Every day. Every hour. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm not afraid anymore." Tears ran down her face. "I'm just grateful. Grateful for everything you gave me. Everything you taught me. Everything you were." The sun dipped below the horizon. Riley Morgan stood in the gathering darkness, her father's legacy wrapped around her like armor. She had survived loss, survived betrayal, survived the consuming fire of revenge, and she had emerged stronger than ever. Not because she was her father's daughter, because she had become something he'd always believed she could be. Herself. 1 year passed. Riley Morgan had transformed the Morgan Training Center into something her father would have recognized, but barely believed. Dropout rates fell 15%. Injury rates dropped 22%. The Morgan method was being adopted by Special Operations Training Commands across all branches. She'd built something that outlasted the darkness. But some wounds never fully healed. They just learned to scar over. On the anniversary of her father's death, Riley woke before dawn and drove to Arlington National Cemetery. The flight took 5 hours. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. Nathan Morgan's grave was in Section 60, alongside other fallen heroes from Iraq and Afghanistan. A simple white headstone. Name, rank, dates. And beneath, "Greater love hath no man than this." Riley knelt in the wet grass, placed a single red rose against the marble. "Hey, Dad." The wind rustled through the trees. A mockingbird sang somewhere in the distance. "I brought you something." She pulled out a folded document and laid it beside the rose. The official certification of the Morgan method as the standard close combat training system for naval special warfare. "Your techniques are going to save lives for generations. Every SEAL candidate who comes through Coronado will learn what you taught me." Her voice cracked. "You always said you wanted to leave something behind. Something that mattered more than medals or commendations. Well, Dad, you did." She stayed for an hour, talking to the headstone, telling him about the candidates she'd trained, the women who'd proven they belonged, the men who'd learned to respect capability over gender. When she finally stood to leave, she touched the cold marble one last time. "I'll make you proud, Dad. Every day. Every candidate. Every lesson." The mockingbird sang again. Riley walked back to her rental car, wiping tears that refused to stop falling. She returned to San Diego that evening to find Delgado waiting at her apartment. "How'd you know?" she asked. "I know you, Kat. Same day every year. Same place." He handed her a cup of coffee. "How was he?" "Still dead." The bitterness surprised her. Even after everything, the justice, the healing, the purpose, grief still found ways to ambush her. "Sorry. I didn't mean, I know what you meant." Delgado sat down on her couch, looking older than she'd ever seen him. "I visit him too, every few months. Tell him about you, about the center, about everything he's missing. What do you think he'd say if he could see what we've built? Delgado smiled. He'd say you're pushing the candidates too hard. Then he'd push them harder. Riley almost laughed. Yeah, he would. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people bound together by love for a man who wasn't there anymore. Finally, Delgado spoke. I got a letter today, from Leavenworth. Riley tensed. Haley. He's dying, pancreatic cancer. Doctors give him 3 months, maybe less. Delgado pulled out a folded envelope. He asked to see you. No. I'm not saying you should go. I'm just telling you he asked. But Riley took the envelope, but didn't open it. What could he possibly have to say? I don't know. But he's been writing you letters for the past year. This is the first time he's actually asked to see you in person. He betrayed my father. He did. He got him killed. He did that too. So why would I— Riley stopped. The anger was there, familiar as breathing. But beneath it, something else stirred. Something she'd been avoiding for 12 months. Curiosity. What could he tell me that I don't already know? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Delgado stood. It's your choice, Kat. It always has been. But some doors close forever when you're not looking. Just make sure you can live with whichever side you're on. He left her alone with the envelope. Riley stared at it for an hour before she finally tore it open. The letter was 3 pages. Handwritten. Victor Hale's penmanship had deteriorated, the strokes shaky, the lines uneven. Cancer eating him from the inside out. Dear Kat, it began. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But before I die, there's something you need to know. Something about your father that I've never told anyone. Please, let me give you this last piece of him. It's all I have left to offer. Riley read the letter 3 times. Then she booked a flight to Kansas. Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary was everything she expected, and nothing she was prepared for. Gray walls, guard towers, the smell of desperation and regret. Victor Hale was in the medical ward. Terminal patients got slightly better treatment than general population, not out of compassion, but practicality. Dead inmates created paperwork. He looked like a ghost. The man who'd once been built like a fire hydrant had withered to skin stretched over bones. His silver hair was gone, claimed by chemotherapy that hadn't worked. An IV dripped into his arm, but his eyes, those deep-set eyes that had watched her grow up, were still sharp, still present. Kat. His voice was a whisper. You came. Your letter said you had something to tell me, about my father. Always straight to business. Nathan was the same way. Hale gestured weakly to the chair beside his bed. Please, sit. This might take a while. Riley sat. She didn't take his hand, didn't offer comfort. Just waited. I've thought about that day every moment for 4 years, Hale began. The day I made the call. The day I traded Nathan's location for money. He closed his eyes. But what I never told you, what I never told anyone, was that it wasn't the first time they approached me. Riley's breath caught. What do you mean? 6 months before Syria. They came to me, offered me the same deal, intel on Nathan's team in exchange for cash. And I said no, told them to go to hell. Nearly killed the messenger with my bare hands. Hale opened his eyes. Then I went to Nathan, told him everything. The approach, the offer, the people behind it. Dad knew, he knew someone was targeting him. He just didn't know who. Hale's voice cracked. We investigated together, quietly, off the books, trying to find out who was selling our people to foreign governments. But you never found them. No, the trail went cold. And then Susan got sick. The bills started piling up, and 6 months later when they came back with a new offer, Hale's face crumpled. I was weak, broken. Everything I believed in, everything Nathan and I had fought for it all, collapsed under the weight of watching my wife die. You could have come to Dad. He would have helped. I know. God, I know. Tears streamed down Hale's hollow cheeks. But by then I'd already made the call, already taken the money. And once you cross that line, once you become the thing you've spent your life fighting against, there's no going back. Riley sat in silence, processing. Her father had known someone was targeting him, had investigated with the man who would eventually betray him. Why are you telling me this now? Because of what we found. Hale reached beneath his pillow, with trembling hands pulled out a worn notebook. Our investigation. Nathan's notes. Names, dates, connections. We didn't find the mastermind, but we got close. Closer than anyone knew. He handed her the notebook. Cross was a middleman. Someone above him was pulling the strings. Someone inside our own government. Hale's eyes burned with dying intensity. Nathan died trying to find them. I betrayed him before he could. But the investigation doesn't have to die with us. Riley opened the notebook. Her father's handwriting filled the pages, precise, methodical, documenting a conspiracy that reached higher than anyone had suspected. Why didn't you give this to NCIS, to Vance? Because I don't trust them. Don't know who's compromised. Hale grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. But I trust you. Nathan's daughter, the woman who took down Cross and brought justice to the people he killed. Finish what we started, Kat. Find whoever's at the top. Expose them. Make Nathan's death mean something more than just another fallen hero. Riley looked at the notebook. At the evidence of a conspiracy her father had uncovered and her godfather had buried. This is why you wanted to see me. This is why I've stayed alive, waiting for you. Hale's grip loosened. I should have died months ago. The doctors can't explain why I'm still breathing. But I knew somehow I knew you'd come, and I couldn't go until I'd given you this. Uncle Vic. Don't call me that. His voice sharpened. I don't deserve that name, not after what I did. Riley closed the notebook. What you did was unforgivable. Yes. I'll never understand how you could betray someone who loved you like a brother. Neither will I. But I believe you loved him too. In your own broken way. Hale's eyes filled with fresh tears. More than I've ever loved anyone except Susan. Riley stood. The notebook felt heavy in her hands. Heavy with secrets. Heavy with possibility. Heavy with the weight of continuing a fight she thought was finished. I'll look into it, she said finally. I'll find whoever's at the top, and I'll burn them down. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. She walked toward the door, then stopped. How much time do the doctors say you have? Days, maybe hours. Riley turned back, looked at the man who'd destroyed her father and saved her father's investigation in the same breath. Dad would have forgiven you, she said quietly. He forgave everyone, even people who didn't deserve it. I know. I'm not there yet. I know that too. But maybe someday, she met his eyes directly. Maybe when this is finished, when I've found the people who started all of this, maybe then I can let go of the anger. Hale smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen on his face since the warehouse. That's all I can ask. Riley left Leavenworth without looking back. Victor Hale died 2 days later. The prison chaplain said he went peacefully, said his last word was Nathan. Riley didn't cry when she heard the news. She was already too deep in her father's notebook to feel anything but determination. The investigation consumed her for months. She traced connections her father had documented, Cross to his handlers, the handlers to government contractors, the contractors to people whose names appeared in classified databases she shouldn't have been able to access. Vance helped when he could. Delgado provided resources. But most of the work fell to Riley, sitting in her apartment at 3 a.m, cross-referencing documents, building a case that grew more terrifying with every revelation. Someone inside the Pentagon was selling American soldiers to foreign governments, and they'd been doing it for over a decade. On month 7, Riley found the connection that broke everything open. A name buried in her father's notes. A reference she'd overlooked a dozen times because it seemed so innocuous. Senator William Crawford, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, the man who controlled the budgets for every covert operation in the United States government. Riley stared at the evidence until her eyes burned. Then she picked up the phone and called Vance. "I know who's at the top." Silence. "Then, are you sure?" Dad was sure. "I have his notes, his evidence, everything he collected before Syria." "How deep does it go? Deep enough to destroy careers, deep enough to change history?" Riley paused. "Deep enough that whoever we tell might be compromised." "What do you want to do?" Riley looked at her father's photograph on the wall. The man who'd spent his life protecting his country only to be killed by the same people he'd served. "I want to finish what he started." The investigation took another year. Riley worked with a small team, Vance, Delgado, and 3 other agents they'd verified were clean. They built the case brick by brick, document by document, until not even the most expensive lawyers in Washington could tear it down. Senator William Crawford was arrested on a Tuesday morning. The news coverage was explosive. Congressional hearings, FBI investigations, a reckoning that shook the foundations of the intelligence community. 12 people were ultimately convicted. 3 more committed suicide before trial. The corruption reached higher and deeper than anyone had imagined, a cancer that had been growing inside the system for 15 years. Riley testified before Congress, her identity no longer protected. The cameras captured a young woman with her father's eyes and her mother's composure, calmly describing a conspiracy that had killed American heroes and would have killed many more if Nathan Morgan hadn't started asking questions. When she finished, the committee chairman, a decorated veteran himself, spoke into the silence. "Ms. Morgan, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you. Your father would be proud." "He would be proud that justice was served," Riley replied. "But he'd also say that pride isn't the point. The point is making sure it never happens again." She walked out of the Capitol building into the Washington sunshine. Delgado was waiting at the bottom of the steps. "How do you feel?" Riley thought about the question. About the 4 years since her father's death. The betrayals. The revelations. The justice that had cost everything and given back more than she'd thought possible. "I feel finished," she said finally. "Like a chapter closing. And the next chapter." She smiled. "Same as the last one. Training warriors. Building something that outlasts the darkness." They walked together toward the waiting car. "Your father called me once," Delgado said. 2 weeks before Syria. Said he'd been having dreams about the future, about what you'd become." "What did he dream?" "He dreamed you'd surpass him, not just in skill but in purpose. He said you had something he never had the ability to turn pain into power without letting it consume you." Riley stopped walking. "He said that, word for word. He also said that when the time came when you had to choose between revenge and justice, you'd choose right, because that's who you are, not who he raised, who you made yourself." She looked up at the sky, the same sky that had watched over Coronado beaches and Afghanistan mountains, and 1,000 places her father had served. "He was wrong about one thing." "What's that?" "He said I'd surpass him. I haven't. I've just continued him, his mission, his purpose, his love for something bigger than himself." Riley turned to Delgado. That's not surpassing. That's inheriting. Maybe that's the same thing. They drove to the airport. Riley flew back to San Diego that night. The next morning at 05:30, she stood on the Silver Strand watching 40 SEAL candidates prepare for another evolution. Among them were 7 women. The legacy her father had started breaking barriers, proving capability, transforming culture, had grown beyond anything he could have imagined. Riley called out across the sand, her voice carrying with absolute certainty. On your feet, movement in 60 seconds. Bodies stirred. Groans rose. Someone muttered a curse. She smiled. The ocean crashed against the shore. The sun broke over Coronado, and somewhere in a place beyond grief and memory, Nathan Morgan watched his daughter carry forward everything he'd ever believed in. Riley Morgan was 26 years old. She'd brought down a senator, exposed a conspiracy, honored a legacy, and she was just getting started. Because some chains weren't meant to be broken. They were meant to be strengthened, link by link, generation by generation, heart by heart, until they could hold the weight of everything that mattered. And Riley Morgan's chain would hold, always.